Hey y'all, today we're going to be talking about the roasting method, and to do that I'm going to show you a simple roasted winter vegetable recipe. So in this recipe, the first step is to cut all of our vegetables up to be the same size. I'm going to show you a little bit of how I did that. Have all of our vegetables cut up, let's talk about the nutrient content. So our orange vegetables here, which includes our carrots and our sweet potatoes and our butternut squash, they're all high in beta carotene. And then we have our parsnips, which bring in some folate and some magnesium. And overall, this is a very high fiber recipe. All of these vegetables are pretty starchy, but they have a lot of fiber in them, and there's also a high water content. I'm just going to combine all of our vegetables in this bowl. To do is get a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. I like to do this in a bowl rather than on the sheet pan because I want to coat all of these vegetables. We're seasoning with salt and pepper. And lastly, this recipe calls for parsley, but I have fresh thyme, so that's what I'm going to use. You could really use whatever herb you prefer. You could use some rosemary, or just a mix would work. I like to use fresh. The recipe calls for fresh parsley, but you could use dried. And this is going to be about a tablespoon of fresh herbs. Now I've just given these a stir. We want to make sure everybody gets coated with the oil and the seasonings and our herbs, and we're going to go straight to our sheet pan. This is just a rim sheet pan. We want to make sure it's all flat. That's important for them to be able to brown in here. We don't want them piled on top of each other because then they'll start steaming if they get too close. Looks good. Now let's talk a little bit about the roasting method and what's going to go on in the oven once we put our vegetables in. So we've got our vegetables evenly laid out here so they've got space on our sheet pan. I've got my oven turned up to 425, which is pretty high. So the starches in our vegetables are actually going to convert to sugar as the heat hits them in the oven, which then is going to brown the outside while keeping the inside tender. With the high water content in these vegetables, the water is actually going to be pulled out while they're in the oven and it will evaporate. That will concentrate these flavors in here, and that olive oil that we coated them with will also help promote flavor absorption and add a layer of flavor to the outside, as well as our fresh herbs. Now that we've got everything coated and ready to go in the oven, I'm going to set this for 25 minutes, and I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to keep my oven closed and set my timer. Our timer has just gone off, so I'm going to go ahead and take our vegetables out of the oven. They look really good. They've got a good color on them. And I'm just going to serve them in this dish. We've got it plated here. Let's get a close-up so we can see those colors are still there. It didn't diminish the texture of our vegetables. Perfectly crisp on the outside and super tender on the inside. So this is a great nutrient-dense side dish, and it would be a great addition to your Thanksgiving menu this year.